The story of Michael Jackson does not begin under bright stage lights or with millions of fans chanting his name. No, like many great tales of genius, it begins quietly, in a small working-class home in Gary, Indiana. The year was 1958. The world was changing, rock and roll was growing, television was rising, and a new generation of music dreamers was just beginning to bloom. Inside the walls of a modest house on Jackson Street lived a family of 9 hardworking parents. Loud laughter, constant chaos, and among the children, a boy with big brown eyes, a shy smile, and a spark in his soul that the world would one day never forget. His name was Michael Joseph Jackson. From the very beginning, Michael was different. His mother, Catherine, saw something gentle and precious in him: his love for animals, his soft voice, his quiet curiosity. His father, Joseph, or Joe as everyone called him, saw something else: potential. To Joe, music wasn't just entertainment, it was a doorway out of poverty, a chance for the family to escape the factory fumes, financial struggles, and the bleak reality of Gary. And Joe Jackson believed in discipline, sometimes harshly, sometimes excessively, always intensely. Michael was only a little boy, soft-spoken, playful, sensitive, when his father started rehearsals for 5 of his sons, eventually known as the Jackson 5. While most children spent evenings running through grass, climbing trees, and laughing until bedtime, Michael spent his evenings repeating dance steps, memorizing harmonies, and being corrected if his voice cracked or if his feet landed on the wrong beat. It wasn't always cruel. Joe believed he was shaping greatness, but to Michael, even as a child, it did not feel like love, it felt like pressure. Yet there was something magical about him. Even at age 5, when he first stepped in front of a microphone, the room changed. His voice wasn't just good, it was soulful, emotional, far too mature for his tender age. When he sang, the world listened even before the world knew his name. Soon, Michael became the lead singer of the Jackson 5. Despite being one of the youngest, his voice carried heartbreak, joy, energy, and innocence all at once. The stage became his playground because the real one, outside his house, never existed for him. And then came Motown. When the Jackson 5 signed with Motown Records in 1969, everything shifted. The world was witnessing a revolution in entertainment, and suddenly, 5 boys from Indiana were thrust into a world of bright lights, endless travel, television appearances, and screaming fans. Songs like "I Want You Back," "ABC," "I'll Be There," and "The Love You Save" took the world by storm. People couldn't get enough of the young boy with the afro, dazzling smile, and electrifying voice. He danced with energy that seemed impossible for someone so small. He had charisma that could not be taught. In every performance, he radiated joy, but behind that joy, something else silently grew. Michael later said that although fans saw a child having fun, inside he felt responsibility, fear, and exhaustion. While other children spent weekends at birthday parties or playgrounds, Michael spent his performing sometimes 4 or 5 shows a day. While other children learned who they were, Michael's identity became shaped by managers, contracts, interviews, and expectations. His life was not his own, not even from the beginning. Behind the camera, life was far different from the glossy perfection the world imagined. Michael often spoke about the loneliness he felt growing up in hotel rooms, missing normal school activities, and longing for friendship beyond fame. He remembered watching children playing tag through hotel windows while he was inside practicing dance moves or preparing his voice. He remembered birthdays spent with recording equipment instead of balloons and classmates. And as he grew older, the pressure only intensified. His relationship with his father played a significant role in shaping him. Joe Jackson was strict, determined, and focused on perfection. Michael loved him, but he feared him. In later years, Michael spoke softly, never angrily, about the emotional and physical discipline he endured. He once admitted that the fear he felt as a child never fully left him, not even in adulthood. It was a strange duality. The man who shaped his talent was the same man whose approval Michael craved, yet feared he would never truly receive. But even with the hardships, Michael's star continued to rise. He grew from a child sensation into a teenager who could command a stage with power. His voice deepened, his dance evolved, and his dreams expanded. He wasn't just a performer, he was a visionary. Michael didn't want to follow the path others set. He wanted to create something no one had ever seen before. And then came the moment that truly shifted everything off the wall. In 1979, working alongside legendary producer Quincy Jones, Michael released the album that would redefine him not just as the former Jackson 5 singer, but as a groundbreaking solo artist. Songs like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You exploded across the world. Michael was smooth, confident, dazzling, and unstoppable. Yet even in this victory, there was something bittersweet. He once said that after winning awards, he expected his phone to ring, expecting congratulations or proud words, but instead, silence. The applause was massive, but the loneliness was louder. Success can feel heavy if you carry it alone. Still, Michael pushed forward, because deep down, he wasn't done, not even close. His imagination was bigger than what the world had seen. He dreamed of storytelling through music, of breaking boundaries, of creating a universe where sound, movement, and visual art fused into one extraordinary experience. Then came Thriller, released in 1982. Thriller wasn't just an album, it was a cultural earthquake. It became and remains the best-selling album in history. Songs like Beat It, Billie Jean, and the unforgettable title track transformed music videos forever. With Thriller, Michael didn't just perform, he created worlds. The moonwalk became iconic. His sparkly glove became legendary. His voice haunting, emotional, and powerful became the heartbeat of a generation. The world was in love with Michael Jackson. Children idolized him, adults admired him, and the entertainment industry reinvented itself because of him. But while his fame grew louder, Michael grew quieter inside. He once said in an interview, "I don't remember ever having a childhood." That sentence wasn't just a statement, it was a wound. The boy who never got to ride a bicycle in peace. The child who never played in the park without security. The young dreamer who never experienced freedom became the man who spent his adulthood chasing the innocence he lost. Neverland Ranch, with its amusement rides, zoo animals, and childish wonder, wasn't built out of eccentricity, it was built out of longing. A longing for a time he never lived. A longing for moments he saw others cherish. A longing for the simple joy of being a child. And yet, even as he tried to reclaim what he missed, the world demanded more. The spotlight didn't dim. The expectations didn't soften. The louder the applause became, the quieter Michael felt inside. The price of genius was becoming clear. The price of fame was becoming heavy. But the price of never having a childhood, that was something deeper. It was something only Michael himself could understand. And as the world celebrated him, adored him, criticized him, questioned him, and demanded perfection from him, Michael Jackson continued to search, not for fame, not for applause, but for something far more human. A sense of belonging, a sense of peace, a sense of finally being enough. As Michael entered the mid-1980s, fame no longer simply followed him. It surrounded him like a shadow. Everywhere he went, cameras flashed, crowds swarmed, and whispers turned into headlines before he even had a chance to speak. The boy who once performed on small stages now lived in a world where silence was rare and privacy felt like a distant dream. To millions, he wasn't just a talented performer, he was a symbol of wonder, mystery, and innovation. Yet, beneath the glittering jackets, the award-winning music videos, and the flawless performances, there was a human being longing for something life never gave him. A moment to simply exist without expectation. Even with his extraordinary success, Michael began feeling the weight of perfection. Every album had to be bigger. Every project needed to break boundaries. Every dance step had to sparkle with precision. The world didn't just admire him, it expected him to remain extraordinary at every moment. And while his creativity remained endless, the pressure slowly carved into his heart. He once said softly, almost like a whisper, that when he was off stage, he felt lonely because the applause stopped. The silence reminded him that the little boy inside him never grew up. he only learned how to entertain. When Michael released Bad in 1987, it solidified his status not merely as a star, but as a cultural phenomenon. His concerts sold out instantly, entire stadiums filled with people who traveled from different countries simply to watch him move, dance, and glow with the unique energy only he possessed. Some would cry the moment he stepped onto the stage. Some fainted. Some held signs saying his music saved their lives. It was worship, admiration, and emotional connection fused into one overwhelming experience. Yet backstage, Michael often returned to a quiet room with only security, assistants, and silence. The louder the world adored him, the more he felt isolated. Fans saw perfection, but he often saw insecurity. Years of public attention had shaped his self-image differently than most people would ever understand. His appearance became a subject people discussed more than his voice or his art. And even though many discussions came from curiosity rather than malice, they still deeply affected him. Behind the fame, Michael struggled with a longing for normalcy. He wanted friendships without assumptions, love without suspicion, and trust without fear of betrayal. His heart remained soft, hopeful, and full of compassion. Even when life made it difficult, Michael's sensitivity wasn't weakness. It was part of the gift that made him the artist the world loved. He felt deeply, and cared deeply. That emotional openness fueled the beauty in his music, but it also made the world's scrutiny hurt even more. Then came something that changed him forever, becoming a father. When his first child, Prince, was born, Michael felt something he had never experienced before: unconditional love that expected nothing in return. The moment he held his newborn son, his eyes softened, and the performer disappeared. He was no longer Michael Jackson, the global superstar. He was simply a father. For the first time, he had something that fame could not touch, the world could not take, and expectations could not define. Michael poured his affection into his children Prince, Paris, and Blanket. To him, they were not heirs of fame, they were his joy, his family, his opportunity to give someone a childhood for better than his own. He wanted them to feel laughter instead of pressure, play instead of rehearsals, freedom instead of scrutiny. He shielded them not from the world, but from the weight he carried. All his life, the weight of being watched instead of simply being allowed to grow. When he spoke of them, even years later, his voice would soften with tenderness. He once said that his children were the only thing in his life that made him feel whole. But as Michael tried to build a world of peace inside the gates of Neverland, the world outside continued to grow louder. Rumors, misunderstandings, and wild assumptions swirled around him, not because of who he was, but because the world often struggles to understand someone whose heart operates differently. Michael remained kind, gentle, and soft-spoken even when he was hurt. He rarely defended himself loudly, not because he was weak, but because confrontation wasn't in his nature. He never wanted to hurt anyone. He never wanted anger to shape his legacy. Instead, Michael turned back to the thing that had always brought him comfort: music. He poured his emotions into songs that carried messages far deeper than the rhythms beneath them. Man in the Mirror wasn't just a song, it was a plea to humanity to become better. Heal the World wasn't just lyrics, it was his dream of a kinder society. Earth Song wasn't merely a performance, it was his cry for compassion for the planet and the creatures that lived upon it. Michael didn't just entertain, he reminded millions that love, empathy, and healing were not weaknesses, but necessities. Still, even as he used his voice to uplift the world, there were days when he felt his own heart needed healing. Days when memories of his lost childhood resurfaced. Days when he remembered how he used to press his small hands against windows, watching children play freely while he rehearsed under fluorescent lights. The ache of lost innocence never truly left him. It simply grew quieter as the years passed. And yet, Michael continued to give. He continued performing, writing, creating, dreaming even when the world questioned him, misunderstood him, or failed to see his vulnerability. The stage remained the only place where he could express everything without speaking, where loneliness transformed into motion, where grief became poetry, where love poured out through every note. As time went on, Michael began to step away from constant public life, seeking peace rather than applause. The world had called him many things: genius, icon, superstar, innovator, but what he deeply wanted was something far more gentle, far more human: acceptance without judgment. In the quiet places where his fame could not reach, in the laughter of his children, in the privacy of his home, in the moments where he could simply breathe, Michael experienced glimpses of the childhood he never had, not through toys or fantasy, but through connection, love, and the safety of being himself. He once said, almost in a reflective whisper, "All I ever wanted was to be loved, truly loved." Those words held the truth behind everything the world saw: the music, the generosity, the creativity, the eccentricity. Michael's life was not a mystery. It was a heart searching for the one thing it never received freely in childhood: unconditional love. The spotlight gave him admiration, but not belonging. Awards gave him recognition, but not comfort. Fame gave him a legacy, but took away normalcy. Through it all, Michael Jackson remained a person with extraordinary talent and extraordinary tenderness, who paid the price of brilliance with pieces of himself the world never understood. And as time moved toward the final chapters of his life, something remarkable happened. The little boy inside him, the one who never had time to play, finally began to feel seen, not by the world, but by the people who truly mattered: his children. They didn't see the king of pop, they saw Dad. And to Michael, that meant everything. As the years went on, Michael Jackson's life slowly shifted from the spotlight to quieter moments, away from the noise of cameras and headlines. The world still admired him, but Michael began focusing more on what mattered most: healing, family, and rediscovering pieces of himself he lost long ago. For someone who spent nearly every moment of his life performing, rehearsing, or being observed, stepping into a quieter existence was both unfamiliar and necessary. Fame had given him everything, yet at the same time, had taken so much. Now, he searched not for another performance, but for peace. During these later years, Michael spent more time reflecting not on the trophies he earned, the records he broke, or the crowds he mesmerized, but on the meaning of it all. He sometimes wondered whether the world loved him, or the image created for him. He wondered whether the boy behind the glittering glove ever had a chance to breathe. And yet, even with those thoughts, his heart never turned bitter. Michael believed deeply in forgiveness, kindness, and the idea that every person deserved a chance to become better than their circumstances. There were moments of joy during this time. Moments when laughter filled his home. Moments where he shared bedtime stories with his children. Moments where he listened to their dreams instead of audiences listening to his. His children didn't care about fame or legacy. They only cared that he was present. They only cared that he loved them. And for Michael, that was the greatest blessing he could ever receive. Still, even in retreat, Michael remained a creator. Music lived inside him as naturally as breath. He continued working on ideas, songs filled with reflection, hope, and messages about love, unity, and the human spirit. His creativity was like a river. Even when the world wasn't watching, it flowed. He knew that art wasn't just something he made, it was something he was. Whether or not the world ever heard those unfinished pieces, they were proof that Michael's heart never stopped dreaming. As time moved forward, something else began to grow: a longing to return to the stage. Not for fame, not for numbers, not for validation, but to reconnect with the part of himself that could only express emotion through rhythm and movement. Performing was the language his soul spoke. The stage wasn't just work, it was home. So when the opportunity came to prepare for a new series of concerts called This Is It, Michael felt excitement, the kind he hadn't felt in years. The rehearsals were electric. Even after decades of performing, he moved with a grace and precision that felt almost unreal. Dancers around him watched with awe, not because they stood beside a legend, but because they stood beside someone who gave his entire soul to every beat. His voice carried warmth and memory. His presence commanded attention, not loudly but gently. There was something almost magical in the way he rehearsed, as though every movement carried history, every step carried purpose, every note carried the entire journey of a life lived under lights. One of the most powerful things noticed by those working with him during this time was how kind he remained. He spoke softly to everyone, whether they were lead choreographers, backup dancers, stagehands, or technicians. When someone made a mistake, he didn't scold, he guided. When someone felt discouraged, he encouraged. Michael's leadership never came from authority, it came from empathy. And yet, while the world waited with excitement for his grand return, the quiet struggles inside him remained. Being a global icon meant constantly balancing expectations, preparing endlessly, and maintaining physical and emotional energy. The rehearsals, although inspiring, were demanding. He pushed himself perhaps harder than anyone else would have dared to, not because he had to, but because his heart believed the audience deserved perfection. Michael didn't see performing as entertainment. He saw it as a gift, something sacred, something that connected people beyond language, age, culture, or belief. He once said that through music, people don't just hear, they feel. And he wanted his audience to feel something unforgettable, something meaningful, something that could make the world just a little softer. But the human body, no matter how extraordinary, has limits. And even the strongest hearts can carry exhaustion when the weight of the world sits quietly upon them. In the early summer of 2009, the world woke up to news that felt unreal. News that millions hoped was a mistake. Michael Jackson had passed away. The shock rippled across cities, across nations, across generations. Radio stations paused regular programming. Television channels changed schedules. Streets filled with people who hadn't met him, yet somehow felt like they had lost someone familiar, someone whose music had been woven into memories, childhoods, celebrations, heartbreaks, and lives. Around the world, strangers cried together. People gathered in parks, in living rooms, in theaters, not to mourn a celebrity, but to honor a soul whose creativity touched millions. Candlelight vigils appeared in places he never visited. Children danced in his memory. Adults revisited the songs that once shaped their youth. His music echoed everywhere, in car radios, in headphones, in stadiums, in hearts. But among all the tributes, one truth surfaced quietly. Michael Jackson wasn't just talented, he was deeply human. His journey wasn't just about fame, it was about longing. His legacy wasn't built only on music, it was built on compassion, imagination, and vulnerability. He wasn't simply the king of pop, he was a boy who grew up too fast, a man who tried to heal the world, and a soul who never stopped searching for the childhood he never had. In the months and years that followed, the world began to recognize not just the performer, but the person. Documentaries, memories shared by colleagues, handwritten notes, and recordings revealed the true heart behind the artistry. Someone shy, gentle, giving, imaginative, and deeply sensitive. Someone who believed in the power of kindness. Someone who carried a tender innocence despite everything life placed upon him. Someone whose greatest joy came not from applause, but from love. Michael's life is remembered as a tapestry of brilliance and tenderness, triumph and sacrifice, light and longing. And while fame shaped his journey, it never defined his spirit. His music still plays today, not as a reminder of what he was, but of what he gave. He gave generations a soundtrack. He gave dancers inspiration. He gave dreamers permission to imagine. He gave the world art that continues to live long after his physical presence is gone. But perhaps his most meaningful message was not sung, it was lived. That even the most extraordinary people are still human. That genius can come with wounds. That success does not replace love. And that a heart, no matter how famous, still longs for understanding. Michael Jackson's story is not a tragedy, it is a legacy. A life that reminds us that joy and sorrow can exist together. That greatness can come with cost. And that the pursuit of love and belonging is a journey shared by all. Today, when his songs play, people don't just hear rhythm, they feel memories. They feel wonder. They feel connection. They feel the echo of a soul who gave the world his voice, his imagination, and his heart. And somewhere, beyond the lights, beyond the noise, beyond the expectations, perhaps the child Michael once was finally runs freely, laughing, playing, surrounded by the innocence and peace he always searched for. Because in the end, the world did not simply lose an icon. It lost someone who changed music, who changed art, who changed hearts, simply because he never stopped believing in magic.